x is equal to 2. My mic was muted right there, so we'll just leave that part, I guess, without. I'll go back. Let's see. So x squared minus 36 is a special factor. It's a difference of squares. So it can be rewritten as x squared minus 6 squared equals 0. Therefore, I can rewrite it as this here, and then I just solve for each one of them individually. For b, I use my factoring checklist, and I check for a common factor. These both share a 7 and an x, so I can pull that out, set each of those factors equal to 0, and then I'm done. Alright, so C is the next one. And C says x cubed minus 6x squared minus 7x equals 0. Again, I'm going to check for a common factor. These all have an x, so I can go ahead and pull an x out. And I'll get x squared minus 6x minus 7. And they don't have a common factor, but remember, we can continue to factor this, or we can at least try. My AC value is negative 7, so I need two numbers that multiply to negative 7, but add to negative 6. So you should have guessed negative 7 and positive 1. So if we set up our table, we're going to have x squared. Negative 7 is here. Oops, sorry, I've never made a box with this thing. And then I pick any of these numbers kind of arbitrarily, and then I take the common numbers out. So I got x here, 1 here, x up top, and negative 7. So then this factors out to be x minus 7 times x plus 1. So this has three different factors, and we can set each one of them equal to 0. I'll start with this first one. X is equal to 0. That's already solved, so we're good to go. The second one is x minus 7 is equal to 0. I add 7 to both sides, and I get x is equal to 7. And the third one, I've got x plus 1 is equal to 0. Subtract 1 from both sides, and I get x is equal to negative 1. So here are my three solutions. Alright, let it be. D says 3x squared plus 3x minus 36 is equal to 0. Again, just going through the checklist, I realize I can pull out a 3, so I'll get x squared plus x minus 12 is equal to 0. This can be factored in further. I need two numbers that multiply to negative 12 while adding the positive 1. And you should get negative 4 and positive 3. Excuse me, positive 4. And let me just erase this. Talking faster than my brain can think. Positive 4 and negative 3 will give me positive 1. So this can be set up in a table. I'll have x squared, negative 3x, positive 4x, and negative 12. I start pulling things out of here, and I'll end up with this, which means this can be rewritten as x minus 3 times x plus 4. And so I've got three factors here, but one of them, this 3, we can just kind of ignore. So we'll start with x minus 3 and set it equal to 0. We'll add 3 to both sides, and we get x is equal to 3. And over here, x plus 4 is equal to 0. We'll subtract 4 from both sides, and I get x is equal to negative 4. Alright, let me see if I have enough room for E. Got some room. I don't know if I have enough. Yeah, let me just erase this stuff real quick, and then we'll continue on with E. Make sure you're watching this video to check your answers and make sure you're doing it right, and not just to get the answers, because you will see this stuff on your quiz. Alright, E. E says 6x squared plus 7x is equal to 3. So I'll set this equal to 0 by subtracting 3 on both sides, and I get 6x squared plus 7x minus 3 is equal to 0. From here I can factor. My AC value is negative 18, so I need two numbers that multiply to negative 18 and add to 7. So you should get positive 9 and negative 2. And so then I can set up my table. Let's see if I can make a nicer table. That's not the worst table I've made. So here I've got 6x squared. I'll go ahead and put 9x here, negative 2x here, and negative 3 here. So then I just start taking out what they have in common. So I've got 3x here, which means I've got 2x there, negative 1 there, and 3 there. So then my factors here are 2x plus 3 times 3x minus 1. I can set each of them individually to 0. We'll start with this one. So I've got 2x plus 3 equals 0. I subtract 3 from both sides, so I get 2x is equal to negative 3. Divide both sides by 2, and I get x is equal to negative 3 halves. Now over here, I'll take 3x minus 1 and set it equal to 0. I'll add 1 to both sides, so I get 3x is equal to 1. I'll divide by 3, and I get x is equal to 1/3. Alrighty, letter F. Let's see, F says 32x squared equals 2. And so I will start this off by subtracting 2 on both sides just to get this equal to 0. So I get 32x squared minus 2 is equal to 0. And first thing I do is check for a common factor. I can pull out a 2 from both of these. So I get 2 is equal to 16x squared minus 1. This is a difference of squares if you did not recognize it. This is 2 times 4x squared minus 1x, or 1 squared, excuse me, which means I can rewrite this as 4x plus 1 times 4x minus 1. Alright, and you could do this with the table if you wanted to. You should still get to the same thing. So once we're here, we'll just go ahead and take each one of these individually and set them equal to 0. So I'll start with 4x plus 1. Again, we're just going to ignore that 2. Subtract 1 from both sides. I get 4x is equal to negative 1. Divide both sides by 4. And I get x is equal to negative 1/4. Now over here, I'll take 4x minus 1 and set them equal to 0. I'll add 1 to both sides, so I get 4x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 4, and I get x is equal to 1/4. And that's letter F. Alright, letter G. Again, I know I'm blowing through this, so if you're having a hard time, slow it down or rewind it and watch it again. G says x cubed minus 2x squared minus 9x plus 18. So you should have noticed that this is 4 terms, so we can use factor by grouping. So I'll set one group here and one group here. Oops, that needs to go around that 9, excuse me, around that negative. So with this first one, I have x cubed minus 2x squared. I can pull out an x squared, so I get x squared, parentheses x minus 2. And over in this other one, I can pull out a, well, let me just rewrite it. I've got negative 9x plus 18. And I want this to match this x minus 2, so I'm going to go ahead and pull out a negative 9 here. and on the inside I'll get x, and then pulling out a negative 9 from the 18 gives me negative 2. So now I can rewrite this. Whenever I take these two and place them together, x squared minus 9, and then they share the x minus 2, so I can write that here. X minus 9 is a difference of squares, right? So I can rewrite this as x plus 3 and x minus 3. Now I've got three factors. I can set each one of them equal to 0. I add 2 to both sides. I get x is equal to 2. Here I've got x minus 3 is equal to 0. I add 3 to both sides, and I get x is equal to 3. Here I've got x plus 3 is equal to 0. I subtract 3 from both sides, and I get x is equal to negative 3. There we go, and that is G. Alright, a couple more. I'm at the end of my little slide, so I'll go ahead and erase these. Oops, sorry about that. Alright, H. H says x cubed minus 3x squared plus 6x minus 18 is equal to 0. And again, this is a factor by grouping, so I'll make one group here. So I've got x cubed minus 3x squared, and I can pull out an x squared. So I get x squared is equal to x minus, times x minus 3. And then my other group is positive 6x and negative 18. And I can pull out a 6, right? So I get positive 6 times x minus 3. Again, they have this x minus 3 in common, so I take this and this, and I can place them together. X squared plus 6 is one factor. And then I take the factor they share, this x minus 3, and make that the other factor. And then I set each one of them equal to 0. So here I've got x minus 3 is equal to 0. So I add 3 to both sides, and I get x is equal to 3. Here I get x squared plus 6 is equal to 0. So I subtract 6, and I get x squared is equal to negative 6. I can then try to take the square root of both sides, but you can't actually take the square root of a negative number, so this is undefined. So our only answer is x equals 3. Alright, letter I. I says 4x squared plus 16x equals 0. We can pull out a 4x, right? So we're left with x plus 4. Again, just going off my checklist. Now I can set each one of these equal to 0. 4x equals 0, divide both sides by 4, and I get x is equal to 0. X plus 4 is equal to 0. Subtract 4 from both sides, and I get x is equal to negative 4. That's it for the first section. Good luck.